Thank you for your time today. My name is Melissa Weil. I'm the Regional Account Director here at Virtual Bridges. I'm here to talk to you about BYOD, or Bring Your Own Device, in education today and ways to implement a BYOD strategy. Teaching really has changed, hasn't it? The expectations as to what your IT staff needs to deliver has changed widely from even just a few years ago. Administrators and students now expect IT to provide mobility support. They also expect IT to keep their data secure. Not to mention, these devices require, quote, all-the-time access. These mobile devices are in the classroom, they're using the network, so now they're in the IT staff's purview. These devices are supposed to enhance the course or the lecture, not weigh the user or the IT staff down. Speaking of weighing the IT staff down, if you have a large campus, you're having to manage those devices by physically walking to them or running, depending on the scenario. The support for those devices can also add to that burden. The IT staff often has to be trained on them as well. So if the equipment is owned by the campus, then the degradation of the device can happen very quickly, especially if it's not a one-to-one scenario or if the equipment is shared. Another concern with implementing a BYOD policy is the actual data. Devices that are brought into the network has data that's at risk for loss or even theft, particularly since there is no centralized management of that device. Students therefore can suffer a loss of data, and that data has no backup and no centralized copies. Obviously, since you're listening to this, you're aware of the issues concerning BYOD. You're also aware that demand for BYOD is not going to go away anytime soon. In Gartner's report of the top 3 tech priorities, mobile technology is a second priority for IT organizations. Virtual desktops can help you implement a BYOD policy across your campus. That's what we do. We're a leading virtual desktop firm that specializes in solving these problems. What virtual desktops are able to do is centralize the client management and move the client processing to the data center. So the devices become centralized and are now managed remotely, meaning any malware that is being downloaded to the device can be remotely managed, or the data that is thought to be, quote, lost is backed up in your data center and can now be pushed out to the device in its last known good state. The performance degradation of the devices is also minimized because the processing is moved to the data center. And everything can be managed from one console, so you're not physically having to handle devices. You may be saying, yeah, I've heard of VDI, but it's not the right solution for us. I'm sure you've heard that traditional VDI is too slow because it requires a very complicated architecture, or that it's too complex because you have to be trained and certified. You probably heard that it's too expensive, it requires expensive storage or licensing, and therefore it becomes not useful or usable. We've heard that too, and traditional VDI is all of those things. We're not traditional VDI. Our VDI client Verde is one of a kind. Virtual Bridges began as a virtual desktop company, so we have a unique position in the industry as building our company focusing exclusively on VDI and solving the problems of VDI. And compared to traditional solutions, we only have one license. You don't need to have licenses to support other parts of the infrastructure. Everything is included in ours. We have a feature called Storage Optimizer that allows you to reduce your storage costs, which is a typical problem with traditional VDI. And we can support branches, so your users can get a LAN experience over a WAN environment. Here is the Verde architecture. Verde is an all-in-one integrated VDI solution which has been developed with simplicity in mind. The central network-attached storage with NFS or CIF support is a major component of the Verde cluster. That's where the gold images are stored, or the desktop images for the devices, as well as system and user data, so that any data is accessible from any server within the cluster. Scalability is another important differentiator. Let's say you need to add 100 students to your environment. A cluster can easily grow by simply adding servers. Here's what deploying a VDI environment can do. The BYOD strategy is implemented through VDI. Students and administrators can use their own devices anytime, anywhere. We also have complete coverage for almost any device. Which devices? Here's our list. Your students and administrators can access their desktops through any of these devices. Using BYOD, you can also repurpose existing desktops and thin clients. The burden on help desk is eliminated with BYOD. IT can now control downloads and manage the environment through a management console. Also, as I mentioned with a BYOD policy, the hardware costs could go to the users, eliminating the funding needed to maintain and purchase hardware. Since the data doesn't reside on the actual device, there's now better security and less device degradation and a huge reduction of security risks. Your IT staff can centrally manage the devices and push out a new desktop to that device should something happen to it. And you don't actually have to handle the device to do that. Virtual Bridges does support a heterogeneous workstation environment, including both Windows and Linux. You can give end users a choice of their device. BYOD supports iPhone, Android, Windows Mobile, as well as the next latest and greatest platform to emerge. Our solution brokers connect from the endpoint through the firewall to the server in the data center. So if a device is lost or stolen, no data is at risk. Here's a couple of case studies I wanted to quickly go over with you. iCERM is a mathematics lab and part of Brown University. They had students that required access to a very specialized set of applications and were highly transient. Implementing BYOD allowed them to reduce time, manpower, and the cost of managing the actual desktops. And they were able to improve the productivity of their students by providing anytime, anywhere access with those customized applications. Birmingham Metropolitan College in the UK wanted to create a, quote, classroom in the cloud, or a learning center that was available to their at-home students and any tablet users. Using BYOD, they now can run Windows desktops on their iPads for their administrators. In summary, a BYOD implementation doesn't have to be difficult, and it doesn't have to be a huge undertaking. You can roll out our BYOD VDI solution and support a variety of devices for your students and administrators. You can manage those devices centrally, and those BYOD costs could potentially go to the users. Data is not at risk because the actual data on that device is being stored in your data center. BYOD also allows for complete coverage of devices that your students or administrators may prefer, allowing it to be a useful and usable BYOD solution. Thank you for your time. Please email sales@vbridges.com or mwile@vbridges.com if you have any more questions.